So you have these various, I don't want to say various, but shootings that have taken place. And a lot of what I'm going to say here is stuff that I've said for many years in many different videos. So the knee-jerk reaction, of course, by so many people is, and it's because of, well, we must do something, right? People would rather go through the motions of doing something as opposed to actually solving a particular problem, okay? But every time, never fails, these guys come along, say we have to do something. I am tired, I am sick, and everybody, tries to inject their own selves into some sort of tragic situation. But it always, in terms of their solution, deals with impeding upon the private property rights of everybody else, which means that your solution isn't a solution. It just means you're a dickhead. And I mean by all, there is no exception. I don't care about how you feel. I don't care about how uncomfortable it makes you. Every single gun law that exists on the books is an infringement. Every one. Doesn't matter which one it is. It's an infringement upon the individual property rights of the people. Doesn't matter how you feel about that. That's just what it is. Now we ain't talking about like, you inflict some sort of pain or aggression. Yes, those are all things that are not good. Whether you did it with a gun or you did it with your fist. So relevant to that, aggression is bad, objectively speaking. But as far as limiting by way of the state, not by the private property owner, by way of the state, the ability for people to be able to arm themselves for whatever reason they want and with whatever they want is an infringement. Now, of course, the crack smokers that exist, again, they're going to cry their crocodile tears, even though they had nothing to do with this situation. And I hate that it has to be like that, because you have people right now that, if you could imagine, if you have a family member or something that is a part of a shooting, which I've had family members that have been shot and killed before, that doesn't feel good. That fucking sucks. Okay. And these people are going through a period of time where they got to deal with some shit. You know what I mean? And of course, those folks would then inevitably use that experience to then say, okay, we now need to intrude upon the rights of everybody else because this must stop. Now, granted, none of what they're going to advocate is going to stop, but they use these buzz terms, gun lobby. I'm telling you, if somebody is using the term gun lobby, it's a 10 out of 10 chance that they're retarded. Oh, we need background checks. Well, those already exist. They're already a thing, believe it or not. And that's the problem, I would argue. One by way of the state. Now, if it was some sort of private entity doing it, that's a completely different deal. But one by way of that's already a thing. That's already a thing. It's like the gun show loophole, not a thing. It's not going to stop these guys from saying it, but it's not a thing. Or what they advocate is already in the books. So really what it ultimately boils down to is they're coming for you. They're coming for me. And I had nothing to do with it. I have my share of rifles. To my knowledge, they have not walked up out of this motherfucker and committed a crime themselves. Not sentient like that. And I certainly haven't done it. So you're trying to criminalize people that already have this, as well as those that aspire to get it. And remember, these are the same people during the Summer of Love in 2020. It wasn't that they didn't say jack shit about people burning your cities into the ground. No. It's the fact that a lot of them egged them on, like that dickhead Steve Kerr, who seems to always have a political position that he uses as a platform in order to state, and he goes virtually unchallenged despite that box-head motherfucker not knowing a damn thing about what it is that he's talking about. Just repeating what he heard some other fucking deranged leftist say. Has no idea what the fuck he's talking about. So at the end of the day, who are you trying to punish? You trying to punish folks that have, that are actually criminals? No. They're criminals. Criminals don't give a shit. Murder's obviously illegal, in case you didn't know that. But they don't care. They don't give a shit. They don't. The only people you're punishing is those of us that wouldn't go out there and commit such atrocities, or those that would stop it. But people don't think of it like that because they're still in this line of thinking where it's, I have to do something. We have to do something. So they would rather, even if it does not work, and these are things that I'm going to address here in a little bit, even if what they advocate will not equal solving the problem, they don't care. It's about them. It's about hyping themselves up and their own egos to signal like they're doing something, but it doesn't solve the actual problem. Those that are in little islands and shit where they have banned whatever guns, and they think that it's as fucking cut and dry. Just ban the motherfuckers and we'll be done here. We did it on our little island, surrounded by mostly a body of fucking water. As if culture has nothing to do with it, as geography has nothing to do with it. Also hilarious that these would be the same people that would concede that the drug war was an absolute failure, and the various ways in order to stop people from fucking themselves up and their lives up and the lives of other people in the way of like maybe selling and shit with various drugs was a bad thing to do. And it did not stop the usage. Somehow that logic goes out of the window when it comes to guns. These guys aren't trying to make sense. Then to be fair, they don't argue. They're not arguing or having a conversation with the folks that are actually on the other side of this issue at all. It's just that, well, I think I know it all. I have the entire solution. And if that means that I must make you pay for it, even though you had nothing to do with it, which is all this is. You have to remember that this is not, that killer's dead in this recent shooting, but that's not going to solve the problem in itself that happened on that individual occurrence. You're trying to prevent the future, but you're punishing people that are in their right minds. They're not violent. They're not going out there using acts of aggression on people. Those are the folks that pay for that shit. The people that aspire to be able to arm themselves, and you want to make it more difficult. Oh, you can just wait a little longer or just get a different type of gun. And then in the future, that gun will turn into something else, even though we know for a fact that even when you consider by far, it's not even close. Folks that want to ban certain magazine capacities or ban AR-15 type of weapons. Well, most of the murders or homicides committed in this country are not done by rifles, you dickhead. Not my opinion. That is a statistical fact. You're just going through the motions. That's it. But anybody advocating that stuff, I consider an enemy. If there's some place where I would draw the line with a person, we can agree and disagree on all this various stuff. But if you are advocating that I myself be disarmed or other people be disarmed for the sake of coddling your own feelings, you are a piece of shit. And you are my enemy as far as I'm concerned. You certainly made me out to be. But that's, if there's a place to draw the line, I think that's where it's at. Well, you don't care about the lives of kids. Precisely the opposite. You don't. You're just using them to punish me. You see, I know that y'all don't want to talk. This is my thing. I'll agree. I don't like the term mental health. Because what it does is the way that it's a cultural thing. The way that this conversation is being had, it puts like mental health in like, I don't want to say a positive light. It's more of some sense of naivety or innocence that's applied to it, right? I believe that crazy motherfuckers are crazy motherfuckers. And you can't account for each and every one, but if there is going to be a way to prevent people from being crazy motherfuckers, that shit is not going to be outlawed. You can't outlaw crazy. You can't. That is a cultural issue. And the reason why people don't want to address it like that is because that will require them to look in the fucking mirror and ask themselves how they attribute to this problem. Why is it that on the upward of 75% of people that commit these mass atrocities don't have fathers in their home? Why is it that it's often tied to some form of abuse at the home? Y'all want to have that conversation? We want to talk about the government's involvement in that and how they even incentivize single motherhood and shit like single parenthood and stuff like that. Can we have a discussion like that? No, that in itself will require some of y'all and your family members to have to look at yourselves and see how you attribute to the problem. But nobody wants to do that. Instead, you're punishing folks that literally had nothing to do with it. We are in this odd spot in this country, man, where folks skirt away from actually trying to get to the source of the fucking problem, because nobody ever wants to assume that they are part of it. It's got to be someone else, right? It has to be someone else. And because it's not that pretty, they try to put it in a pretty little bow, and that's why everybody always goes to the state. Hey, governor, you should do something about that. Senators, you should do. Wait a minute. Why? They can't prevent anything. Any other day, you're calling them the worst people in the world. Do nothing, Congress, though I would prefer that the Congress did fucking nothing. Y'all call them all sorts of things, and you recognize that a lot of these is corrupt. People are corrupt, and now you sitting there trying to have them do something? What could they possibly do that wouldn't just make the problem worse? Nothing. Of course it's going to make the problem worse. That's all they know how to do. But, hey, we have to do something. So people would rather, even if it makes the problem worse, they would rather go through the motions. And that's how sad this shit is. Same side of people. Also in the summer of love of 2020. Let me tell you this. And obviously, y'all know I am not pro-police. Never have been in this sense. But people look at the police and they say, hey, all these damn activists. Well, we need to abolish them. If your position in that position is not coinciding with also a position of, well, we should get rid of the gun laws that we have, you are chicken shit and nobody should take you fucking seriously. At all. Really, all you are, it's like, okay, there's a state that has a territorial monopoly, right? And their agents known as the police officers, who y'all claim are supposed to serve and fucking protect, which I'd argue that they don't. And then you are going to cripple the individuals from protecting themselves when legally the only people that are able to do it are them. Doesn't even make sense. It's a hypocritical talking point. But when you're so emotional and you're a brainlet, well, you often come up with bad, terrible ideas. All these actors. And I think you guys should keep tabs on these motherfuckers. This ain't about whether or not you like guns or anything. Even though there's people that say, well, this good guy with a gun thing is a myth. Is it? Because the motherfucker's dead right now and y'all had to wait for the motherfucking police to come do it. What they want, and this is what pisses me off, what they want is you to be a sitting goddamn duck no matter who it is you are, because it makes them feel better. Even though we already know that crazy people don't give a shit about that. We know we got this recent guy that was out here in Texas. We know we got the evidence that he was fucking crazy as hell. He was out of his fucking wit on a mission to do something to fuck people up. And instead of, well, I don't know, maybe having more people. I don't know why I know why it keeps happening in fucking schools and stuff like that, because they shun upon folks being able to know what they're doing with one. At the end of the day, even if you thought it was a myth, you can't say that, because at the end of the day, the person that stopped them had a gun. It ain't that it's a myth. It's that you still strapping hands behind people's back. I'd argue, no, we don't need less. We need more. Need more of y'all learning what to do with it. That's the most important part. It ain't just about having a gun. It's knowing what to do with it. Go get trained up. And anybody that's getting in your way, they are an enemy. Because this ain't about this. They don't care about children. Now I told y'all, there's no way that I would, when we have kids, I would put them in a public school. Fuck no. And I'd argue that, hell, if anything, this should incentivize you to get your people the fuck out of them schools if you can. However, in an environment, if you ask me a question, would I rather, if at any point I had to drop my son or daughter off somewhere where I was not going to be present, would I want the majority of adults that are supervising them to be able to have weapons concealed? You goddamn right. It's not even, I don't even have to think about it. The authoritarian left wants you disarmed, and they want you to be a sitting duck. And they will not use any there's no tragedy that they wouldn't use in order to get what it is that they want. And I hate that they have to use dead children, which is a fucking tragedy. This guy's a piece of shit. He's a dead piece of shit. But he's a piece of shit. He's a special piece of shit. And it ain't about ridding him of like what it is that he did. Obviously, he has some shit going on mentally. That's not what this is about. It's about, okay, how about looking at that? Why? What culture have we cultivated to where guns have always been here, right? Believe it or not, the whole school shooting thing, that's a relatively new phenomenon, right? Guns have always been. In fact, they were allowed in the classrooms far more back in the Gap, like when my mothers and them were coming out. Hell, everybody had rifles and shit. Hell, motherfucking kids in school went to the, truck, had fucking, after they drove the truck to school, had fucking shotguns and fucking rifles in the truck like it was nothing. So what happened between now and then? What culturally are y'all doing to cultivate a country where folks are fucking crazy, but they also don't value human life? Let's talk about that. The reason why y'all don't want to do that is because, again, it will require you to understand how you attribute to the problem. Hell, we can look at even some of these other things that we've discussed, various things that we've discussed on my channel. Things that would have been diagnosed as mental illnesses 10 years ago, now proudly celebrated. Often people that are along some of these lines have issues as well. And not necessarily about taking their other people's lives, though sometimes they do, but taking their own. Can we talk about that? Why is it off limits? I ask that rhetorically because I know that would force a lot of folks, especially people that are culturally significant, have a position of prominence, would have to then look at themselves in the mirror and ask, how do I attribute to it? Is there anything that I'm doing that is attributing to this problem? And oftentimes it's yes. A lot of things that we celebrate, and by we, I'm not meaning me as an individual, I'm saying culturally, that's celebrated has net negatives on children and young people. I say single motherhood is one of those. See, now it's praise, right? Even me saying that, I know there's some people watching this right now. Oh, shit, I was raised by a single mother. Oh, I don't like that he said that. Well, I'm right. All the statistical data points to it. People that raised in a single parent household generally do worse socially, economically, than those that have two parents in their home. It is as simple as that. And I say this as a guy that was raised by a single mother. You can get mad at me all you want. I'm right. But it's not like we live in a culture where they shun that. You got so many women that are proud to be that. They snap their fingers. They'll work their fucking neck. They think that was something to strive for. I'm independent. You might be fucking up that child too. I'm just saying. These are things that we need to talk about. What culturally has people making these such bad decisions? Male, female, doesn't matter. But y'all don't want to talk about that. It's too off-putting. Certain demographics of people are going to feel some kind of way. So what's the easiest thing to do? Ask a bunch of dickheads in Washington to do something that is not going to fix the problem. But it looks good. It gathers headlines. It gets retweets. And it makes you feel like, hey, I am doing something. When at the end of the day, all you're doing is punishing people that had absolutely nothing to do with it. And punishing folks in the future that want to put the protection of themselves and their families by making it more difficult for them to be able to do such a thing. Because this legislation or whatever that y'all try to put forth is not going to stop crazy people from being fucking crazy. You just listened to a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake, which is live throughout the week at 12 p.m. Central on youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. Be sure to check out my website, ericdjuly.com, so you can stay up to date with everything it is that I'm doing. You can also become a member and get access to a bunch of cool perks and exclusive content, which includes a social media hub where you can interact with myself and other members. It even has an app that you can get, which is now live in the Google and Apple stores.